Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danielle. In today's video, I am so excited to share with you some DIYs that I worked on this past week. They are inspired by springtime and some items that I have seen on Pinterest and on Pottery Barn. I will be using air dry clay on a couple of pieces, and I will also be painting something that is inspired by recent flowers that have bloomed in our garden. I am so excited to share with you how these items turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I hope that this inspires you to get creative this springtime. Let's jump right into today's video. So let's DIY some candles. For this, you will need pillar candles, 2-ply napkins, parchment paper, scissors, and an iron. These candles are the 4-inch and 6-inch pillar candles from Michaels. The first thing that you are going to do is separate the napkins, since we are only going to use the side with the print. I put a cloth down to protect the counter, and now I am going to iron out the creases that naturally appear on napkins. In order to complete this project, I programmed my iron to the hottest setting. I also did not put water in because steam will wrinkle the paper, which we do not want. Now that the creases are gone, I am using this pencil to draw a line so that I can cut the napkin to the size of the candle. I am using the center of the napkin because the edges have a design that I could not iron out, but normally I would just place the candle at the edge and cut from there. I'm wrapping the candle with the napkin and pulling as tightly as I can without ripping it. And now I am going to iron the paper onto the candle. As you can see, the napkin is adhering to the candle due to the wax melting. This print is so beautiful. Next, I am cutting off the excess. As you can see, there was a small area of the napkin that did not adhere to the candle, so I just went over that spot again, and I also ironed along the edges so that it blended in seamlessly. I did the same on the other candle. And this is how they turned out. Now, I am not a fire expert, so use your discretion when lighting a candle using napkins, obviously. I have never had any issues, but I just wanted to put that out there. The print at the top of this candle does look faded, but that's only due to the reflection of the flame. The pattern does go all the way to the top. Next, I am going to make a decorative plate using air dry clay. For the beginning of this project, you will need clay, a rolling pin, parchment paper, something that will help you to create a circle for the plate, and faux or real flowers to create an imprint on the clay. Also, water is going to be your best friend while using clay, so make sure you have that close by as well. Here I'm combining all of the pieces of clay and rolling it out. You can make this as thick or thin as you would like. Mine ended up being pretty thick. Some bubbles formed, as you can see here, and if that ever happens, just simply poke the bubbles with something sharp, and then you can just blend it together and roll it out again. I traced the circle onto the parchment paper with a pencil so that I could use it as a guide to ensure that I am rolling out enough clay for the plates. I flipped it over so that the pencil mark won't transfer onto the clay. I added more clay since what I had wasn't enough to fill the circle that I'm going to create using the planter. I scored the pieces that I already had and an extra piece that I rolled out. I added water and blended them together. Using this method to join pieces ensures that the two pieces adhere to each other. Now I'm smoothing everything out by adding a bit of water. I remove the excess clay and then smooth out the edges using more water. I already had these stems on hand, so I'm going to use them to make the imprint on the plate. I'm separating the pieces here to see what portions I want to imprint on the plate. I can be a perfectionist sometimes, and this sleeve did not come out perfect, so I am smoothing part of it out and recreating my own lines. Next is the fun part. I am going to create scalloped edges that will elevate the design of the plate. After a few hours of drying time, I am removing it from the parchment paper and am placing it on this plate that we already had so that the clay can take shape of the plate. I did place saran wrap down first so that the clay will be easy to remove. I am going to keep these faux florals, so I simply rinse the clay off in warm water and it's now ready for reuse. Since this is thick, I had to let it dry for a couple of days. When it was all dry, I took it outside to sand it down and smooth out any imperfections. First, I used a more coarse sandpaper, a 320 grit. And now to smooth things out, I'm using a 600 grit sandpaper. Once that was all done, I brought it inside and mixed some beige paint with water so that I can cover the plate. I thinned out the paint with water because clay absorbs paint extremely quickly, so you don't need a lot. After spreading the paint with a paintbrush, I use a wet paper towel to blend out the brush strokes. I then added a second layer for full coverage. This actually looks beautiful the way it is, and if you want to leave it this way, you totally can, but I wanted to add more color to mine. I love the speckled look on pottery pieces like this plate here, so I use watered down black paint to achieve that look. I dipped a small paintbrush into the paint mixture and flicked the edge of the brush in order to achieve a spattered look. I decided to blend in some water with white paint in order to create dimension and color. So, fun fact, in college I actually took a pottery class, and that marked the beginning of my love for pottery. I find it to be so relaxing and satisfying to make pieces from clay. Next, I am going to paint the imprint that I made with the faux flowers. I will use 2 tones of purple paints, yellow, black, green, and white, similar to the stem that I used earlier. I blended out and mixed colors together to achieve the look that I was going for. For these smaller areas, I did use a toothpick to apply the paint. This doesn't look the best right now, but I am going to blend out the colors soon so that it doesn't look so sloppy. You can get creative here and use whatever colors you'd like. Here I am adding that beige base on top of the stems to help blend it out and to make it look more neat. To seal this plate, I am using this triple thick gloss glaze. I let that dry for a couple of days and hung it on the wall. The next piece that I will be working on is a painting. I was inspired to do this because a couple of weeks ago, these beautiful yellow flowers popped up in our garden. I already had this frame. What I love about it is that I can place the piece of fabric that I'm going to paint in between these two pieces of glass to create a floating effect. The one thing that I don't like about this frame is the color, so I am going to use antiquing wax to darken the frame. Here I am measuring out the inner frame to see what size I should cut the cloth. My husband already had this cloth on hand, so I did not have to go out and purchase it, but you can find this canvas drop cloth at any hardware store or craft store. I like the look of frayed edges, so I am tearing off pieces of thread to create that look. Now on to the painting. These are the colors that I will be using, but first I iron the cloth to remove all of the wrinkles and creases. When painting, I love placing things close by that inspire me. I had these dried baby's breath on hand. Although I'm not drawing the same type of flower, it helps to create a nice ambiance for me to work with. I love wildflowers, so that's the vibe I'm going for. I'm going to place this in our dining room, and since I decorated that room with pinks and purples, I am using the same colors here. Like working with clay, I find painting to be so therapeutic. I'm not the best painter, but I do love putting on music, zoning out while painting, and seeing what happens. I ended up lightening the purple flowers since I wanted a more pastel tone. I really love how this turned out. As someone who is not a pro, I think it turned out pretty well. Another item that I do want to DIY is this Magnolia wreath. I found this at the thrift store and it was $4.49, which is such a great price for wreaths nowadays. I've seen some on the Pottery Barn website that cost a few $100s. This Magnolia wreath is so beautiful, but it does need a little bit of sprucing up. As you can see here, the leaves are pretty dull. Typically, Magnolia leaves are very shiny and they have a high gloss, but this one does not. So what I am going to do is I'm going to add some sheen to this, and I am going to add some florals throughout as well. Magnolia leaves usually bloom during the beginning of spring, so I'm looking forward to DIYing this for the springtime. Again, this is what we are working with. I definitely want to add sheen to these leaves and want to darken the color a bit. I am using black and green to darken the leaves. This black paint is fabric paint, but that's okay because this is all I have on hand, and this fabric paint is just a watered down version of regular acrylic paint. I mixed the colors together to achieve the look that I want and then dabbed it on the leaves with a wet paper towel. After a few hours, the leaves dried, and then I spray painted the gloss finish to replicate the look of real Magnolia leaves. I ended up spraying 4 coats, allowing about 2 hours between each coat to dry. While that was drying, I headed over to Michael's to see if they had any magnolia leaves that I could attach to the wreath. I ended up finding these beautiful flowers. They came in pink and an off-white color. They actually did have magnolia flowers, but they were way too big to add to this wreath. These are what I ended up purchasing. I love that I added sheen because the leaves look more realistic than they did before without it. I fluffed out the leaves and then cut off the frayed edges that were sticking out. I am adding these particular picks to add some texture. I thought this bunny pick was so adorable and so appropriate for spring and Easter, so I'm going to place him here on the bottom. I decided to replace what was here with the wreath. Now moving on to the wall hanging piece that I made with clay. I was recently on Pinterest and came across this page, Clay of AA. I'll leave a link to her Pinterest and website below so that you can check her out. I love the beautiful prints that she uses to design her pieces, and this is what inspired me to create this next piece. I am beginning by rolling out some clay for the top portion. I used one of my daughter's books to cut out a straight line. I then used an old glass container to cut out a design. I got to this side and didn't have enough clay, so I scored the large piece and added some extra clay that I had on the side. I then smoothed out and blended everything together with water. Now I am smoothing out the edges and any imperfections that I see. I picked up this lace curtain at the thrift store for a couple of dollars a while ago, and I think it's perfect to make an impression on the clay. I'm moving it around to make sure that I get the exact print that I want on the clay. I am rolling out enough pressure not to flatten the clay, but to have the clay seep through the fabric just a bit. And here's the print. It is so beautiful. Next, I am rolling out a piece for the base and using the same method for adding a print to the clay. Now I'm double checking to make sure that the pieces are even and that the shape is what I want. And finally, I cut out a piece for the edge of the base. Since both sides will be visible for this particular piece, I placed the clay on top of the fabric and wrapped it around the top, so that when I roll it out, the print will appear on both sides instead of just one side. Now I'm scoring all of the edges to attach all of the pieces together. To ensure that the back does not flop over, I am placing this face behind it to stabilize it. And now I'm using this tool to blend all of the seams together. I will be hanging this, so I am making a hole for a nail. And finally, I'm blending together the seams on the bottom. I let this dry for a couple of days and I'm going to add some watered down beige paint. To add some dimension and color, I added a darker tan color around the rim and the edge of the top portion. I let that dry overnight and added the triple gloss glaze. Once that was completely dry, I placed it in our closet. To take things to another level, I actually rolled out a small piece of clay to cover the nail since it was kind of an eyesore. Once that was completely dried and painted, I added some hot glue gun to this small piece and attached it to the nail. To complete this look, I am adding a candle and faux greenery. I absolutely love how this turned out. The print is so beautiful. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was a long one, but I hope you enjoyed all of the DIYs and feel inspired to create your own. I hope you are all doing well, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!